զրուցման համար խոսքը տրվում է քաղաքական գիտությունների դոկտոր պրոֆեսոր Օշտինի Վարմեի եւ Մազուրի պետական համալսարանի քաղաքական գիտությունների ինստիտուտի տնօրեն պարոն Արկադի Ժուկովսկուն թեման ճանաչված եւ չճանաչված հետ խորհրդային երկրների միջև սահմանային համագործակցության եւ սոցիալ-քաղաքական եւ տնտեսական զարգացման գաղափարը. Please, Professor Ժուկովսկի.
Здравствуйте. Большое спасибо за приглашение. Я очень рад, что я участник этой конференции. Я первый раз в Армении, первый раз в Республике Артех, но извините, я приготовил выступление на английском языке. Thank you very much, and I know that in 15 minutes will be a coffee break. Then I will try to summarize my speech, and this is a speech about a little bit strange idea here, about idea of cross-border cooperation. And I will talk you in the context of the contemporary international relations, in the context of fulfill aims of foreign policy, and on multi-track diplomacy, which is, I think, a very good way answer for instability and danger of many hybrid wars and other wars in contemporary international relations. And you know that the situation in the world is very, very dynamic. There are so many interactions, more actors, and it is really difficult to follow situation and then analyze and make some prediction. It's a big puzzle with many pieces. And atmosphere in the international relation is really very bad. We are talking, but it's a fact. It's a new Cold War is coming. There are many wars, sometimes trade only, or beginning between USA and China. There are a lot of such moves like to impose sanctions against other countries, just to punish or to destroy. And this international environment is very unstable. There are ad hoc alliances. Look at the Russian-Turkish relation in past 5 years, from really hostility because of the one incident to now some kind of alliance in some cases, especially on Syrian conflict in Syria. So that it's, as I said, the situation is complicated, and of course, when we are talking about aims of foreign policy, the aims are steady, but the tools should be quite different. Not only, as I will say, one-track diplomacy, government to government, presidents to presidents, but society should be also engaged in many cases. That this is a need. It is necessary to conduct foreign policy on regional and local level. It is a model. It is model which is considered with democracy. In authoritarian and totalitarian system, it doesn't exist. And of course, when we are talking about the aims of foreign policy, this is, if we gain or regain independence, we need to have a sovereign state. We should ensure security, order, stability. But the most important is a good friendly relation with other states and especially with our neighbors. And how to attain, how to fulfill these aims? It depends, of course, on our resources. For example, if we are a superpower, we could prepare hard powers, not soft power like many superpowers even today, or this stick diplomacy. But of course, I will focus on soft power, on diplomacy as a tool of foreign policy. And of course, there are well-known two principles: equality and mutuality. Not depends on the size and power of the state. And I said before, traditional approach to diplomacy is now not enough approach. New diplomacy with the public involvement, with the involvement of society, civil society is a quite necessary solution. And world is changing, and when we are talking about democracies, is not only the centralization of economy, but also the centralization of government, and more power go to regional and local level. Also, when we are talking about foreign policy. And this is, of course, the aims, basic aims of foreign policy must be the same from the central and local government. But then you need a really independent self-governance, самоуправление. And this is, and for me, the open, face-to-face diplomacy is a such answer for what is going on. And idea of cross-border cooperation is an important part of foreign, or could be important part of foreign policy, especially when from the past the nations lived as enemies with hostility. And we have in Europe very good examples. For example, German-France relation. And by cross-border cooperation, it could be much easier to make stability, development, and prosperity. And also, I know that at the beginning of the last century, at the beginning of the 90s of the last century, there were great fears about cross-border cooperation on Polish-German border, that it will be a German expansion to Poland because of economic power of Germany, and then that it will be like it is in German, Drang nach Osten. This is a push. Is a push of Germany to Poland. But after almost 30 years, this idea was fulfilled, and this is practically is not border, and the border is a border of some kind of I don't want to say friendship, but understanding and mutual cooperation. And as I said, multi-track diplomacy is the answer. And we have a track one, as I said, it's government-to-government diplomacy, but track 2, track 3, track 4, and track 5. And very shortly, I make a characteristic. The track two is related to the non-governmental organization, more informal contacts, but I will concentrate on track 3, 4 and 5. Track 3 is a business to business, and this is very important to engage private sector in cross-border cooperation. And this is, there are mutual benefits from such cooperation. And in the context of fair business and fair trade. Many industrial projects, economic projects, it's much better to make together from both sides of border, because sometimes the problems are the same on one and on both, as I said, both sides of border. Very important track 4 diplomacy. It is people to people, and this is exchange of students, academics, pupils, scientific, cultural, educational cooperation. And this, you know, sometimes when we are talking about the Polish-Russian borderland, that for many Poles and for many Russians, if they meet together, the negative stereotypes are going out, because we talk. We don't get information from media, from government media, but from each other. And this is very important, and there are some kind of even friendship. And then the tension, you know, because when we are talking about Polish-Russian now relations are very bad, but on the borderland is quite well. We have no enough maybe money to expand this cooperation, but it's mutual understanding. And when we are talking about the survey, how we look at the Russians, in our region, it means close to the Russian border. It's a positive attitude. But in other regions, because it's not so much positive because of mass media, central mass media. And then this is a track 5 diplomacy, media to media, just to not antagonize people on both sides of the border, and then not to you know to propagate negative stereotypes between nations, because and then sometimes by media, by fake news, you can make many damages, like we have so many examples. And if we want to make a stability, development on the borderland, sometimes it's very difficult, it takes decades. But then we can really solve many problems, mutual problems. Like, for example, it is on Polish-German border. And it's, when we are talking about economy, it's also, there is no need to build the same infrastructure, social infrastructure in one state and another, but we can cooperate in this. And then, you know, I know that in Caucasus here, situation is very much complicated, but don't forget such idea which could be fulfilled in the future. But politicians especially should know that this such idea. The diplomacy is not only official, high-ranking meetings and negotiation, but more society, more non-governmental institution should be engaged in the process. And of course, after the war, it's very, very difficult even to talk. It takes a time, but I think in some parts of Europe we have very good examples that when the states are democratic, this is a necessity to fulfill such idea. And I look at the watch, and exactly as my watch is 12:30, and this is according to the program should be a coffee break. Then thank you for attention. Спасибо за внимание.